Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished repairing the damaged power coupling in the engine room. The work was hard and dirty, but nobody else wanted to do it. The alien crew members always found excuses to avoid the tough jobs, leaving them for the human to handle. "Human, are you done with that simple task yet?" Vexstar's voice echoed through the metal corridors. The tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian security chief stood in the doorway, his forearms crossed over his chest. His yellow eyes looked down at Jake with clear disgust. Jake stood up slowly, his back aching from crawling through tight spaces. "Yes, sir. The power coupling is fixed. The engines should run at full capacity now." Vexstar made a clicking sound. With his tone, which Jake had learned meant the alien was annoyed. "It took you 3 hours to do what any proper crew member could have done in 1 hour. Humans are so slow and stupid." The words stung, but Jake kept his face blank. He had heard worse insults during his 2 years aboard the Stellar Wind. Every day brought new reminders that he was different, unwanted, and barely tolerated by his alien crewmates. "The job is done correctly," Jake said quietly. "The repair will last longer than a quick fix." Vexstar laughed, a harsh sound that hurt Jake's ears. "Humans always make excuses for their failures. You should be grateful we allow your kind on this ship at all." Jake picked up his tools and walked past the security chief without another word. There was no point in arguing. The aliens had made up their minds about humans long ago, and nothing Jake did would change their opinions. Corridor outside the engine room was busy with crew members going about their duties. Jake recognized most of them after 2 years of service. There was Quindle, the silver-skinned Altarian science officer who treated Jake like a child. There was Mortex, the insect-like communications officer who refused to speak directly to humans. And there was Zaraki, the plant-based navigator who always made Jake feel like he was too stupid to understand basic concepts. All of them ignored Jake as he walked past. He was used to being invisible to his crewmates. The only time they noticed him was when they needed someone to blame for problems, or when they wanted entertainment by mocking the primitive human. Jake made his way to the ship's mess hall, hoping to grab a quick meal before his next shift. The large room was filled with aliens eating their various foods. Some preferred liquids, others ate strange fruits, and a few consumed things that looked like rocks. Jake's human food came from sealed packages that tasted like cardboard. He found an empty table in the corner and sat down alone. This was his usual spot, away from the other crew members. As he opened his meal package, he heard familiar voices. From a nearby table, "Did you see the human trying to fix the power coupling?" Quindle was saying to a group of other officers. He was crawling around like a primitive animal. Humans are barely more intelligent than the creatures they evolved. From another voice replied, "Earth only joined the Federation 50 years ago. They have no real technology or culture." Jake tried to ignore the conversation, but the words kept reaching his ears. He had heard similar discussions countless times before. The aliens loved to remind each other how new and primitive humans were compared to the advanced civilizations that had been part of the Galactic Federation for thousands of years. "I heard that human governments had to beg for Federation membership," Quindle continued. "They had nothing to offer except raw materials and cheap labor. Captain Krelov only keeps the human aboard because regulations require diversity in crew composition." Vexstar's voice joined the conversation. "If it were up to me, I would send him back to his mudball planet." Jake finished his meal quickly and stood up to leave. As he walked toward the exit, he heard Quindle call out behind him, "Leaving so soon, human? We were just discussing your species' fascinating history of warfare and destruction." Jake stopped but did not turn around. "I have duties to perform." "Always." "So serious," Quindle laughed. "Humans have no sense of humor." That is why they will never advance beyond their current primitive state. The mess hall filled with alien laughter as Jake walked out. He had learned not to defend himself or his species during these conversations. Any response would only encourage more mockery and insults. Jake returned to his small quarters, the only private space he had on the ship. The room was barely large enough for a bed and a small desk. The walls were covered with pictures of Earth, reminders of the home he had left behind to serve in the Federation fleet. He had joined the space service with dreams of proving that humans deserved respect among the stars. Jake wanted to show the galaxy that his species was capable of great things. But after 2 years of constant humiliation and rejection, those dreams seemed foolish and impossible. The ship's communication system crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. Captain Kreloth's voice filled the room. "All crew members report to your stations. We have detected an unusual energy signature in the next system. We are changing course to investigate." Jake put on his uniform and headed to the bridge. As the ship's junior officer, he was responsible for monitoring secondary systems during investigations. It was not an important job, but it kept him busy and away from the other crew members. The bridge was filled with activity as the stellar wind approached the mysterious energy source. Captain Kreloth stood in the center of the room, his gray skin reflecting the light from the various displays. The Centaurian captain was professional but cold toward Jake, treating him like a necessary piece of equipment rather than a valued crew member. "Report," the captain ordered. Quindle studied his instruments carefully. "The energy signature is artificial, but it does not match any known Federation technology. The source appears to be located near a dead star. Could it be a trap?" Vexstar asked, his hand moving to his weapon. "Unknown," Quindle replied. "The energy pattern is unlike anything in our databases." Captain Kreloth considered the information for a moment. "We will investigate. If this is a significant discovery, it could advance our careers considerably." Jake listened to the conversation from his station near the back of the bridge. Nobody asked for his opinion or suggestions. The aliens assumed that humans had nothing valuable to contribute to important decisions. As the ship moved closer to the energy source, Jake felt a strange sensation in his chest. It was like a warm feeling spreading through his body, but he could not understand what was causing it. He checked his instruments, but everything appeared normal. The feeling grew stronger as they approached the dead star. Jake tried to ignore it, focusing on his duties instead. But something deep inside him was responding to whatever lay ahead in the darkness of space. Soon, they would discover what was waiting for them in that forgotten corner of the galaxy. And Jake Morrison's life would never be the same again. The stellar wind dropped out of hyperspace near the dead star, and Jake felt the strange warmth in his chest grow even stronger. He gripped the edge of his control panel as the sensation spread through his entire body. Something was calling to him from the darkness ahead. "There," Quindle pointed at the main screen. "The energy source is coming from that object." Jake looked up from his instruments and gasped. Floating in the void near the dead star was a massive ship, unlike anything he had ever seen. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the stellar wind. The hull was dark, but seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Strange patterns covered its surface, creating designs that hurt to look at directly. "By the stars," Captain Kreloth whispered. "What is that thing?" The alien crew members stared at the mysterious vessel in silence. Even Vexstar seemed nervous as he studied the unknown ship. Jake noticed that his instruments were going crazy, showing energy readings that should have been impossible. "Run a full scan," the captain ordered. "I want to know everything about that ship." Quindle worked at his station for several minutes, his silver fingers dancing across the controls. "The vessel appears to be very old, possibly 10,000 years or more. The design does not match any known civilization in Federation records. Is it dangerous? Vexstar asked, his weapons ready. Unknown. The ship appears to be powered down. But I am detecting automated systems that are still active. There are also life support systems running in some sections. Jake studied his own readings and frowned. The energy patterns coming from the ship were familiar somehow, but he could not understand why. It was like trying to remember a dream that kept slipping away. Captain, Jake said quietly, my instruments are showing something strange. The ship's energy signature has patterns that remind me of silence, human. Vexstar interrupted. Nobody asked for your opinion. Captain Krylov raised a hand for quiet. What were you going to say, Morrison? Jake hesitated. The other crew members were staring at him with their usual mixture of annoyance and disgust. The energy patterns seem familiar, but I cannot explain why. It is just a feeling. Quindle laughed coldly. Humans and their feelings. We need facts, not primitive intuition. Enough, the captain said. Prepare a boarding party. We are going to investigate that ship. Vexstar stepped forward eagerly. I will lead the team, Captain. We should take our best people. Agreed. Select 4 security officers and 2 technicians. Leave the human behind. We cannot risk having dead weight on such an important mission. Jake felt the familiar sting of rejection, but he kept his expression neutral. He watched as Vexstar chose his team from the most skilled alien crew members. Nobody even looked in Jake's direction. The boarding party prepared their equipment and headed for the shuttle bay. Jake remained on the bridge, monitoring their progress on the sensors. The shuttle looked tiny as it approached the massive alien. Vessel, we are docking with the ship, Vexstar reported over the communication system. The airlock is responding to our commands. That is strange for such an old vessel. Proceed with caution. Captain Krylov replied. Jake watched the boarding party's life signs on his screen as they entered the mysterious ship. Everything seemed normal for the first few minutes. Then suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout. The alien vessel. What is happening? The captain demanded. The ship is activating defensive systems, Quindle reported from his station. Energy shields are powering up throughout the vessel. On the communication channel, Jake could hear shouting and weapons fire. Vexstar's voice came through clearly. Filled with panic. We are under attack. The ship has guardian robots. Our weapons are not working against them. The bridge crew watched in horror as the boarding party's life signs scattered across the alien ship. The team was being hunted by something they could not fight. Get them out of there, Captain Krylov ordered. The ship's defenses are blocking our transporter, Quindle replied. I cannot get a lock on them. More weapons fire echoed through the communication system. Jake could hear Vexstar screaming orders to his team, but it was clear they were losing. The battle. We need immediate extraction, Vexstar shouted. These machines are too advanced for our weapons. 3 of the boarding party's life signs went dark on Jake's screen. The remaining team members were retreating toward the shuttle, but the guardian robots were following them. They are not going to make it, Quindle said quietly. Jake stood up from his station. Captain, let me go help them. Absolutely not, Vexstar's voice came through the communication system. I will not have a weak human interfering with this mission. But sir, I might be able to help, Jake insisted. My instruments showed that the ship's energy patterns are familiar. Maybe I can understand its systems. Captain Krylov looked at Jake with doubt in his eyes. You are not trained for combat missions, Morrison. With respect, Captain, your trained combat team is failing. What do you have to lose? The captain considered this for a moment while listening to the sounds of battle coming from the alien ship. Finally, he nodded. Take a shuttle. But if you get yourself killed, I am not explaining it to Federation Command. Jake quickly gathered emergency equipment and headed for the shuttle bay. His heart was pounding as he flew toward the massive alien vessel. The strange warmth in his chest was now burning like fire, growing stronger with every meter he traveled. Shuttle docked with the alien ship at a different airlock from the one the boarding party had used. Jake stepped through the entrance and immediately felt the difference. The corridor was sized perfectly for someone of his height and build. The aliens would have had to crouch or bend to move through these passages comfortably. The walls were covered with symbols that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. Jake could not read them, but something deep in his mind was trying to translate their meaning. It was like having a word on the tip of his tongue that he could not quite remember. He followed the sound of weapons fire through the ship's corridors. The alien vessel was beautiful inside, with curved walls and glowing panels that provided soft light. Everything was designed with elegant simplicity that felt somehow familiar. Jake found the boarding party trapped in a large chamber, surrounded by tall robot guards. The machines were sleek and powerful, with energy shields that made the Federation weapons useless. Vexstar and his remaining team members were hiding behind overturned furniture, completely outmatched. "Human!" Vexstar shouted when he saw Jake. "Get out of here! These machines will kill you." But Jake was not looking at the robots. His attention was focused on the chamber itself. Along the walls were displays showing star maps, technical diagrams, and symbols that made his head spin. In the center of the room stood a large pedestal with something that made his breath catch in his throat. It was a suit of armor, but not like anything Jake had ever seen. The metal was dark, but seemed to glow with inner light. It was clearly designed for a human-sized being, with proportions that matched Jake's own body perfectly. As he stared at it, the armor began to glow brighter. "The armor is responding to someone," Quindle said over the communication system. "The energy readings are increasing." Jake took a step toward the armor, and the Guardian robots suddenly stopped their attack. They turned to look at him, there, glowing eyes studying his face. One of them made a sound like musical tones, and Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The robot was trying to communicate with him. And somehow, Jake understood what it was saying. "Welcome home, heir of the architects." Jake's world spun as the meaning of those words hit him. The armor, the ship, the familiar energy patterns. It was all connected to something he had never known about his own species. Something that would change everything he thought he knew about humans and their place in the galaxy. The Guardian robots stepped aside, creating a path to the armor. Jake walked forward slowly, his heart hammering in his chest. Behind him, the alien boarding party watched in stunned silence as their despised human crewmate approached technology that had defeated them so easily. Jake reached out and touched the armor with trembling fingers. The moment his skin made contact with the metal, the entire ship came alive around him. The moment Jake's hand touched the armor, the entire ship filled with light. Displays that had been dark for thousands of years suddenly came to life, showing symbols and images that danced across every surface. The Guardian robots stepped back and lowered their weapons, their glowing eyes now focused on Jake with what seemed like respect. "What is happening?" Vexstar shouted from behind his cover. "Human, what did you do?" Jake could not answer. His mind was flooded with information as the armor systems connected with his nervous system. Images flashed through his thoughts, star maps, technical diagrams, and memories that were not his own. He saw great cities floating in space, massive ships that could destroy planets, and beings that looked exactly like humans but possessed technology beyond imagination. The armor began to shift and change, adapting to Jake's body size and shape. Metal plates moved like liquid, forming a perfect fit around his arms and legs. A helmet materialized around his head, and suddenly Jake could see the world in ways he had never imagined. Energy patterns became visible, showing him the power flowing through the ship's systems. He could see the life signs of every person in the chamber, their heartbeats and breathing displayed as colored lights. Most importantly, he could understand the symbols that covered the walls around him. "Greetings, Architect Air," a voice said inside his mind. It was not speaking in any language Jake knew, but he understood every word perfectly. "I am the guardian, AI of this vessel. I have been waiting for one of your kind to return." "I don't understand," Jake thought back to the voice. "What are architects? What does this mean?" The AI's response came with a flood of images and memories. Jake saw the truth about his species, a truth that had been hidden for thousands of years. Humans were not the primitive newcomers that the galaxy believed them to be. They were the descendants of the most advanced civilization that had ever existed. "Long ago, your people ruled the stars," the AI explained. "They were called the architects because they built the foundations of galactic civilization. The hyperspace lanes, the energy sources, the basic technologies that all current species use, all of it was created by ancient humans." Jake staggered as the information hit him. Through the armor systems, he could access databases that contained the entire history of human civilization. He saw worlds covered with incredible cities, space stations the size of moons, and fleets of ships that could reshape reality itself. "But what happened to them?" Jake asked. "Why are humans now considered primitive?" "Civil war," the AI replied sadly. "Your ancestors grew too powerful. Some believed that humans should rule the galaxy forever. Others thought that such power would corrupt your species. The war that followed destroyed everything." The images in Jake's mind showed the final battles of the ancient human empire. Entire star systems were destroyed as the two factions fought each other with weapons that could crack planets in half. In the end, both sides lost. The survivors scattered across the galaxy, most losing their advanced technology and knowledge. "Earth was one of the refuge worlds," the AI continued. "Your ancestors chose to forget their past and live as simple people. They hoped that future generations would be wiser than they were." Jake felt the armor systems fully integrate with his body. Suddenly, he was stronger than he had ever been. His reflexes were lightning fast, and his mind could process information at incredible speeds. He could feel the ship's systems responding to his thoughts, waiting for his commands. "The armor is just the beginning," the AI said. "You now have access to technologies that make current Federation science look like children's toys. But with this power comes great responsibility." Jake turned to look at the alien boarding party, who were still hiding behind their cover. Through the armor's enhanced vision, he could see their fear and confusion. They had no idea what was happening or what Jake had become. "Stand down, Guardian robots," Jake said aloud. His voice was different now, carrying authority that made even Vexstar listen. "These beings are not enemies." The robots immediately obeyed, moving to defensive positions around the chamber. Jake walked over to where the aliens were hiding, and they stared at him in amazement. The armor made him look like a warrior from legend, glowing with power and radiating strength. "Human," Vexstar whispered. "What have you done?" "I have learned the truth about my species," Jake replied, "and about yours as well. Through the armors databases, Jake could see the real history of the galaxy. The Zephyrians, Altarians, and other Federation species had built their civilizations on the ruins of human technology. They had found ancient human devices and reverse-engineered them, never understanding their true origin. "You are all using human technology," Jake said quietly. "Your hyperspace drives, your energy weapons, your life support systems, all of it was invented by my ancestors." Quindle's voice came through the communication system from the ship. "That is impossible. Humans are a primitive species that only achieved spaceflight 50 years ago." Jake accessed the ship's external communication array and connected to the stellar wind systems. With the armor's processing power, he could override their security and access their databases directly. "Check your own records," Jake said as he transmitted the historical data. "Cross-reference the energy signatures of your technology with the patterns from this ship. You will find that they match perfectly." There was silence from the bridge as the alien crew members examined the information. Jake could imagine their shock as they realized the truth about human civilization. "The architects," Captain Kreloth said slowly, "the mythical builders that created the foundations of galactic civilization. You are saying they were humans?" "Not mythical," Jake replied. "Real, and I am their descendant." The armor's AI began showing Jake the locations of other hidden human sites throughout the galaxy. There were dozens of them, each containing technology and knowledge that had been lost for thousands of years. Some were hidden in asteroid fields, others were buried on uninhabited planets, and a few were disguised as natural phenomena. "Your species has the potential to reclaim its heritage," the AI said. "But the galaxy has changed since your ancestors' time. The other species may not welcome the return of human dominance." Jake understood the implications. If humans revealed their true history and began reclaiming their ancient technology, it would upset the balance of power in the galaxy. The species that currently dominated the Federation would not give up their positions easily. "We have to be careful," Jake said to the AI. "If we move too quickly, we could start another war." "Wisdom," the AI replied. "Your ancestors' greatest mistake was believing that power alone could solve their problems. Perhaps their descendants will be smarter." Jake turned his attention back to the boarding party. Vexstar was still staring at him with a mixture of fear and amazement. The proud security chief, who had mocked Jake for years, now seemed small and vulnerable. "What happens now?" Vexstar asked quietly. "Now we return to the ship," Jake replied, "and we begin to change the galaxy one step at a time." The armor systems allowed Jake to interface directly with the ancient ship's controls. He could feel the massive vessel responding to his thoughts, its power systems coming online for the first time in thousands of years. The ship was his now, along with all the knowledge and technology it contained. But Jake also felt the weight of responsibility that came with such power. His ancestors had destroyed themselves because they could not handle the temptation of unlimited strength. He would have to be wiser than they were. The Guardian robots escorted the boarding party back to their shuttle, treating them with the respect due to guests of an architect heir. Jake remained behind for a moment, absorbing more information from the ship's databases. There was so much to learn, so much to understand. "Remember," the AI said as Jake prepared to leave, "power without wisdom is destruction. Your ancestors learned this too late. Do not repeat their mistakes." Jake nodded and walked back to his shuttle. The armor systems remained active, enhancing his abilities and connecting him to the ancient ship. He was no longer just Jake Morrison, the mocked human crew member. He was something new, a bridge between the past and the future, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire species. As he flew back to the stellar wind, Jake began planning how to use his newfound knowledge. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not the primitive species they had always believed them to be, and Jake Morrison would be the one to teach them. Jake's shuttle docked with the stellar wind, but before anyone could leave, alarms began blaring throughout the ancient ship. The massive vessel's systems were fully awakening after thousands of years of sleep, and something was wrong. "What is happening?" Captain Kreloth demanded over the communication system. Through the armor's connection to the ancient ship, Jake could feel the problem. The vessel's automated defense systems were activating, triggered by the presence of non-human life forms. Aboard, the ship's AI had been programmed to protect architect technology from alien species, and it was about to eliminate what it saw as intruders. "The ship thinks your boarding party are thieves," Jake explained as he quickly suited up in the armor. "It is going to send hunter robots to kill them. Can you stop it?" Vexstar asked, his voice tight with fear. Jake was already moving, his enhanced reflexes carrying him through the shuttle bay faster than any normal human could move. "I am going to try." The armor systems showed him the layout of the ancient ship and the positions of the hunter robots. These machines were different from the Guardians they had faced before. They were designed specifically to hunt down and eliminate threats to architect technology. They were faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything the Federation had ever encountered. Jake reached the ship's central control room just as the first hunter robot appeared. The machine was sleek and silent, moving through the corridors like a metal ghost. Its sensors were scanning for alien life forms, and it had already locked onto the boarding party's location. "Guardian AI," Jake called out through the armors. "Communication system. Cancel the security protocol. These aliens are not enemies." "Negative, Architect Air," the AI replied. "Non-human species have violated the ship's security. They must be eliminated according to standing orders." Jake realized that the AI was following programming that was thousands of years old. The ancient humans who had built this ship had been at war with other species when they created these protocols. The AI could not understand that the galaxy had changed since then. "I am overriding those orders," Jake said firmly. "As an architect, Air, I have the authority to change the ship's mission parameters." "Override accepted," the AI replied after a moment. "But the hunter robots have already been activated. They cannot be recalled until their mission is complete." Jake cursed under his breath. The hunter robots were independent units designed to complete their tasks no matter what happened. The only way to stop them was to destroy them, and that would require a level of combat skill that Jake had never possessed. But the armor was changing that. As Jake moved through the ship's corridors, he could feel the suit's combat systems coming online. Tactical displays appeared in his vision, showing him the best routes to intercept the hunter robots. Weapon systems he had never used before suddenly felt familiar and natural. The first hunter robot peered around a corner, its sensors immediately locking on to Jake's position. The machine was fast, but Jake was faster. The armor's enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge the robot's energy blast and return fire with his own weapons. The battle was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. The armor systems guided his movements, turning him into a warrior that could match the ancient robot's speed and strength. He could see the machine's attack patterns before it moved, and his weapons struck with perfect accuracy. When the first hunter robot fell, Jake felt a surge of confidence. But there were more machines coming, and they were learning from their fallen comrades' mistakes. The next robot was more cautious, using cover and trying to outflank Jake's position. "Status report," Captain Kreloff demanded over the communication. "System, I am engaging the hunter robots," Jake replied as he dodged another energy blast. "The boarding party should retreat to the shuttle immediately." "We are trying," Vexstar responded. "But these machines are blocking our path." "They are too fast and too strong for our weapons." Jake could see the situation through the armor's tactical display. The boarding party was trapped in a section of the ship with hunter robots closing in from multiple directions. Their Federation weapons were useless against the ancient machine's armor and shields. "I am coming to help," Jake said, sprinting through the ship's corridors at superhuman speed. The armor systems showed him the fastest route to the boarding party's location. Jake had to fight through 3 more hunter robots along the way, each battle teaching him more about the suit's capabilities. The armor did not just enhance his physical abilities, it was also connected to a tactical database that contained thousands of years of combat experience. Jake reached the boarding party just as 2 hunter robots cornered them in a storage bay. Vexstar and his team were hiding behind crates, their weapons completely ineffective against the machine's advanced defenses. "Human!" Vexstar shouted when he saw Jake. "These things are going to kill us." Jake did not reply. He was already moving, the armor systems calculating the best approach to defeat both robots simultaneously. The first machine turned to face him, its sensors recognizing Jake as the greater threat. The battle was fierce and fast. Jake fought with skills he had never learned, using weapons he had never trained with. The armor's AI guided his actions, turning him into a perfect warrior. He could see the robot's weaknesses, predict their movements, and strike with deadly precision. The alien crew members watched in amazement as their despised human colleague destroyed machines that had easily defeated their security team. Jake moved like a dancer, his every action flowing smoothly from one attack to the next. The hunter robots, designed to be unstoppable killers, fell before him like toys. "Impossible," Quindle whispered over the communication system. "The human is defeating technology that is thousands of years more advanced than anything in the galaxy." "Not defeating," Jake corrected as he finished off the last hunter robot. "I am using human technology to fight human machines. This is what my species was capable of when we ruled the stars." The boarding party stared at Jake in silence. The armor made him look like a figure from legend, glowing with power and radiating authority. He was no longer the weak human they had mocked for years. He was something else entirely, a glimpse of what humanity could become when it reclaimed its heritage. "You saved us," Vexstar said quietly. "After all the times we insulted you and treated you badly, you still risked your life to help us." Jake looked at the security chief through the armor's visor. "You are my crewmates. That means something to humans, even when it is not returned." The simple statement carried more impact than any angry speech could have. The aliens had spent years treating Jake as less than equal, but he had still chosen to protect them when they needed help. It was a lesson in honor that made them ashamed of their past behavior. "The path to your shuttle is clear now," Jake said. "The hunter robots have been destroyed, and the ship's defenses are under my control." As the boarding party made their way back to their shuttle, Jake remained behind to secure the ancient ship. The armor systems allowed him to access every part of the vessel, from the engine room to the bridge. He could feel the ship's power responding to his thoughts, ready to obey his commands. "You have done well, Architect Air," the Guardian AI said. "You have proven that humans can still be worthy of their heritage." Jake nodded, but he was thinking about the future. The ancient ship contained technology that could revolutionize the galaxy, but it also contained weapons that could destroy civilizations. His ancestors had possessed incredible power, but they had used it to tear themselves apart. "I will not make their mistakes," Jake said firmly. "Power without wisdom is destruction. I will use this knowledge to build, not to conquer." The AI seemed satisfied with his response. "There are other ships like this one hidden throughout the galaxy. When you are ready, I will show you where to find them." Jake returned to his shuttle and flew back to the stellar wind. The alien crew members were waiting for him on the bridge, their expressions a mixture of awe and fear. They had witnessed Jake's transformation from laughingstock to legend, and they did not know how to react. "Morrison," Captain Kreloff said slowly, "what happens now?" Jake looked around at his crewmates, these aliens who had spent years treating him as inferior. They were looking at him with respect for the first time since he had joined their crew. "Now we return to normal duties," Jake replied. "But things will be different from now on." The aliens nodded, understanding that their relationship with Jake had changed forever. He was no longer just another crew member they could mock and dismiss. He was the heir to a power that could reshape the galaxy, and they would treat him accordingly. As the stellar wind set course for its next destination, Jake stood on the bridge wearing the ancient armor. The other crew members gave him space, still intimidated by what they had witnessed. But Jake was not thinking about his new status among the crew. He was thinking about Earth and the billions of humans who had no idea about their true heritage. Soon, they would learn that they were not the primitive species the galaxy believed them to be. They were the descendants of the greatest civilization that had ever existed, and it was time for them to reclaim their place among the stars. Jake stood in the observation deck of the stellar wind, still wearing the ancient armor that had changed his life forever. Through the large windows, he could see the massive architect ship following them through hyperspace. The vessel had bonded with him, its eye choosing to accompany Jake rather than remain dormant in that forgotten system. The past 3 days had been strange for everyone aboard the stellar wind. The alien crew members treated Jake with a mixture of respect and fear that he found uncomfortable. They spoke to him politely, followed his suggestions without argument, and gave him space whenever he passed through the corridors. "Human," a voice said behind him. Jake turned to see Vexstar approaching cautiously. The proud Zephyrian security. Chief looked nervous, something Jake had never seen before. "You can call me Jake," he replied. "We have served together for 2 years. My name has not changed." Vexstar nodded, but still kept his distance. "I wanted to apologize for how I treated you. We all did. We were wrong about your species." Jake studied the alien's face, seeing genuine regret in his yellow eyes. "You treated me the way you were taught to treat humans. The galaxy has believed we were primitive for so long that it became accepted truth. But it was not truth," Vexstar said quietly. "Your people built the foundations of our civilization. Everything we use, everything we depend on, came from human minds thousands of years ago." Through the armor's connection to the architect ship, Jake had spent days learning about his species' true history. The databases contained detailed records of human achievements that made current galactic technology seem like children's toys. His ancestors had built cities that floated in space, created machines that could reshape matter at the atomic level, and developed weapons that could destroy entire star systems. "Yes," Jake said, "but they also destroyed themselves with that power. I do not want to repeat their mistakes." The armor's I had shown Jake the final days of the architect civilization. The war between the two human factions had been devastating beyond imagination. Entire worlds had been turned to glass, star systems had been moved as weapons, and billions of people had died as the two sides fought for control of the galaxy. "What will you do with this knowledge?" Vexstar asked. Jake had been thinking about that question for days. The armor gave him access to technology that could make him the most powerful being in the galaxy. He could claim the hidden architect sites, rebuild the ancient ships, and restore humanity to its former dominance. But doing so would likely trigger another war, this time between humans and the species that currently controlled the Federation. "I will be careful," Jake replied. "Power without wisdom destroyed my ancestors. I will not let it destroy their descendants." Captain Kreloff's voice came through the ship's communication system. "All senior staff report to the bridge. We are approaching our destination." Jake followed Vexstar to the bridge, where the rest of the crew was gathering. Captain Kreloff stood at the center of the room, looking older than he had a few days ago. The discovery of the architect ship had shaken his understanding of galactic history. "We will be dropping out of hyperspace in 10 minutes, the captain announced. "Our destination is Station Alpha, one of the Federation's largest research facilities. I have been ordered to deliver a full report on our discovery to the Science Council." Jake felt a chill run through him. The Federation Science Council was controlled by the galaxy's most powerful species. If they learned about the true extent of human capabilities, they might decide that humanity was too dangerous to remain free. "Captain," Jake said carefully, "what exactly are you planning to tell them?" Kreloff looked at Jake with troubled eyes. I am required to report all significant discoveries to Federation Command. The Architect ship represents the most important archaeological find in galactic history. And my role in accessing the ship's systems? The captain hesitated. That will be part of my report as well. Jake understood the implications. Once the Federation learned that humans could control Architect technology, they would want to study both Jake and his species. At best, humans would become valuable tools for accessing ancient sites. At worst, they would be seen as a threat that needed to be contained. I have a request, Captain, Jake said. Allow me to send a message to Earth before we reach the station. My people deserve to know the truth about their heritage before others learn of it. Captain Kreloff considered this for a moment. Very well, but make it brief. I cannot delay our arrival. Jake returned to his quarters and activated a secure communication channel to Earth. The message would take hours to reach his home planet. But it was important that human leaders learn about the Architect discovery before the Federation made any decisions about humanity's future. This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison of the Stellar Wind, he began. I am transmitting classified information that will change everything we know about human history. 3 days ago, we discovered a derelict ship belonging to an ancient civilization called the Architects. What we learned will shock you. Jake spent the next hour recording everything he had discovered. He explained about the Architect civilization, the advanced technology, and the fact that humans were the descendants of the galaxy's former rulers. He also warned about the political implications of this discovery and the need for careful planning. Do not reveal this information publicly until we can coordinate our response, Jake concluded. The galaxy is about to learn that humans are not what they appear to be. We must be ready for the consequences. As Jake finished his message, the Stellar Wind dropped out of hyperspace near Station Alpha. The massive research facility hung in space like a small moon, bristling with communication arrays and docking bays. Ships from dozens of species were attached to the station, representing the diversity of the Galactic Federation. Incoming message from Station Alpha, Quindle reported. They are requesting immediate docking and debriefing. Jake watched through the observation windows as their ship approached the station. The Architect vessel remained hidden behind them, its stealth systems making it invisible to Federation sensors. Jake had instructed the ship's AI to keep their escort secret until he decided how to reveal its existence. Morrison, Captain Kreloff called out, you will accompany me to the debriefing. The Science Council wants to speak with you directly. Jake nodded, knowing this moment had been inevitable. The armor systems were still active, enhancing his mental abilities and connecting him to the hidden Architect ship. Whatever happened in the next few hours would determine the future. Relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. The docking process took 30 minutes, during which Jake prepared for what might be the most important conversation in human history. The Federation Science Council consisted of representatives from the galaxy's most advanced species. They had the power to change humanity's status within the Federation, for better or worse. Jake, Mexstar said as they prepared to leave the ship, whatever happens in there, remember that you saved our lives. You proved that humans have honor as well as power. Jake appreciated the sentiment, but he knew that honor would not be enough to protect his species from the political consequences of their discovery. The galaxy's power structure was built on the assumption that humans were newcomers with little to offer. Learning that humans had actually built the foundations of galactic civilization would threaten the authority of every established government. As Jake walked through the station's corridors toward the Science Council chambers, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. His ancestors had possessed incredible power, but they had used it poorly and destroyed themselves. Now their descendants had a chance to reclaim their heritage, but only if they could prove they had learned from the past. The council chamber. was a vast room filled with representatives from dozens of species. Jake recognized some of them from his studies: the Hegemony Chancellor, the Trade Union Director, and the Military Command Admiral. All of them were staring at him with intense curiosity. "Lieutenant Morrison," the Chancellor said in a voice that echoed through the chamber, "we understand you have made a remarkable discovery. Please tell us what you found." Jake looked around the room at the assembled representatives. These beings controlled the fate of trillions of sentient creatures across the galaxy. Their decisions could determine whether humanity would be welcomed as equals or treated as a threat to be contained. 3 days ago, Jake began, we discovered the truth about human history, and about yours as well. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's return to greatness would be peaceful or violent. Jake had the power to reshape the galaxy, but he also had the wisdom to know that true strength came from building rather than conquering. As he began to tell the story of the architects, Jake felt his ancestors watching from the past. They had failed to use their power wisely, but perhaps their descendants would succeed where they had not. The future of the galaxy depended on the choices that would be made in this room, and Jake Morrison was determined to make them count.